The road to Baghdad. When Hulagu, the grandson of Genghis Khan, moved west against Baghdad, he was not attacking some obscure town. He was marching on one of the greatest capitals of the age, the seat of the Abbasid Caliphate, a city whose name still carried enormous religious and historical weight. That is exactly why its fall mattered so much. Baghdad still looked like the center of a great order. The tragedy was that much of the strength behind that image had already worn thin, glory without power. By the middle of the 13th century, the Abbasid Caliphate still possessed prestige, ceremony, and memory, but not the old power that had once made those things dangerous. The Caliph remained symbolically important across the Islamic world, yet Baghdad no longer commanded the kind of force that matched its reputation. That gap between glory and real capacity was fatal. A state can survive being weaker than it once was. It is far less likely to survive if its rulers do not understand how weak it has become. The weak Caliph. At the center of this final episode stood Caliph al-Mustasim. The sources are blunt. He was ineffectual, surrounded by conflicting advice, and unable to mount a strong defense against Hulagu. He ignored some Mongol demands, and answered others with blustering, empty threats. That is one of the clearest human signs of Baghdad's weakness. The city was facing an enemy famous for disciplined conquest, and its ruler still behaved as if inherited dignity might somehow replace hard preparation. The blindness of the elite. The weakness did not end with the Caliph. Baghdad's ruling elite seems to have confused inherited rank with usable strength. They still spoke the language of greatness, but they no longer lived by the habits that had once made greatness possible. This was not simply a failure of courage. It was a failure of realism. They misread not only Hulagu's intentions, but the whole nature of Mongol power. Organized, methodical, relentless, and able to turn preparation into destruction with frightening speed. The first warning in battle. That failure became visible in war, even before the city fully collapsed. One account of the siege says Abbasid forces came out from Baghdad, and at first managed to defeat one Mongol group, but failed to pursue. The Mongols then broke dikes and flooded the ground behind the Caliph's troops, trapping them and turning hesitation into disaster. Whether every detail survives equally well in every source, the pattern is clear. The regime could still produce gestures of resistance, but not sustained, intelligent defense. A rigid society. There was also a social weakness beneath the military one. Christians in Abbasid society were not absent and not always powerless. They could be present, useful, and at times influential. But they lived under a system of unequal status, restriction, and dependence, rather than as full equals within a shared civic order. That mattered because a society becomes less resilient when it teaches whole communities that they may serve but never quite belong. Christian oppression, in that sense, was not just a moral issue. It was part of a broader habit of hierarchy and narrow incorporation. Why the Mongols were more flexible. The Mongols, by contrast, were savage in war, but often flexible in rule. Across their empire, they showed a notable willingness to work with many faiths and many peoples. Their rulers and camps could include Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, and others, and clergy of different religions might receive protection or exemption. This did not make the Mongols humane in any modern sense. It made them practical. Their openness to different faiths was not softness. It was an imperial tool. Faith is strategy. In Baghdad, that flexibility had visible consequences. Several accounts say Christians in the city were spared through the influence of Hulagu's Christian wife, Dokuz Khatun, or through Christian influence within the Mongol camp. Whether every later detail is exact or not, the broader point stands. The Mongol imperial system could make practical room for Christian allies and communities, in ways the late Abbasid order did not. The siege closes in. Then came the siege itself. Hulagu's forces converged on Baghdad in January 1258, bridged the Tigris with captured boats, and closed the city, and built siege works around it. That matters because it destroys one lazy cliché about the Mongols. Baghdad was not brought down by wild riders acting on impulse. It was taken by an empire that could combine cavalry terror with engineering, planning, and patient pressure. The fall. Once the city was enclosed, the illusion of Abbasid power began to crack in public. Al-Mustasim had answered danger with threats. Now those threats meant nothing. Baghdad fell on February 10, 1258. According to one major source, the Caliph and about 300 officials hurried out to surrender, only to be killed soon afterward. In that scene, the old order was reduced to its bare truth. The Caliphate still had robes, titles, and memory. It no longer had the power to protect itself. What really collapsed? That is why the fall of Baghdad was more than a military defeat. It was the exposure of weakness that had been building behind ceremony and prestige for years. Weak leadership mattered. Elite blindness mattered. Christian oppression mattered as part of a broader social rigidity. And Mongol acceptance of multiple faiths mattered because it made their empire more flexible in action, better able to recruit, protect, use, and reorder different communities for its own purposes. The final meaning. So Baghdad fell not only because the Mongols were strong, though they were. It fell because Mongol strength struck a caliphate that had grown brittle in the minds of its rulers, in the structure of its society, and in the conduct of its war. The Mongols did not create all that weakness. They revealed it, surrounded it, and then destroyed it.